What is up, guys? It's Tony here, and today we are doing another photography critique, and today we are taking a look at generally long exposures. Any type of long exposure I've ever taken, not all of them, but some of them, some of my favorites, some of my least favorites, basically just to show you guys what you can do with long exposures, how you can use them, and what not to do with them, and what to do with them, how to be creative with them. So let's go ahead and start off here with a typical long exposure on a highway. This is a very boring type of photo. Everyone's seen these, but they still are interesting, and everyone needs to try this at least once just to get an idea. There's three of them here. So we're going to go through and we're going to review all three at once. So this first one is my first ever long exposure of a highway, ever. And, when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is impressive. Then I took this one, and I was like, okay, this one's terrible. So, one thing to mention is you really want a lot of light going on. You really need to do a long exposure. You need to do like 30 plus seconds. This one was a 30-second exposure, and still I didn't get much going on. So, make sure the highway is pretty active as well. So, this side of the highway had a lot more activity for some reason, or maybe just at the time there was a lot more activity. So you can really see that this is a more interesting long exposure. This one also was pretty good. Now I'm going to critique really quickly why this photo and this photo and this photo are not that great. This one doesn't have enough going on. This one, when you're doing highway long exposures, these signals, they're cool. It's interesting that you got these like flashing long exposure signals going on. But I gotta be honest, I could do without them. I think that the signals take away from it. Any good highway photography that you see of a long exposure doesn't have a signal. That's not good. Don't try to avoid that. Keep doing it until you get no signals. I know it's difficult because people signal. It's normal, but you should try to avoid that. There's actually some more here. Same thing with this one. There's some signals here. Wait, those aren't signals. That's the signals here. Here we go. So that's kind of something you want to avoid, but this one's a lot better. This is probably the best of the three, even though this one's really cool. I think this just looks amazing, the way the light curves, but this one's really the best in terms of composition and the way it worked out. Now, another cool thing is when you have the exits and entrances. Really look to get some of those in there because it adds a little bit of diversity in the way the color's working. You really got to paint it like it's a scene, so you got to plan out how these colors are going to draw. It's a lot of time and patience and things like that. So yeah. Now, so these photos are all great, but they're very boring. They're your typical run-of-the-mill traffic long exposures. So how could I make a long exposure with traffic on a highway a little more interesting? Like this. So what I did here is I took a photo of my buddy's car. This is Nick's car. And in the background, I did the long exposure of the traffic. So now I got a much more interesting photo with more of a subject for, say, a client. So say a client has a great car and he wants a photo taken of it and he'll pay you $80. This is a good idea. You have the long exposure of the traffic in the background, some activity going on. You also have this nice light from this lamppost here going on with these, nice flares. And another cool thing that I planned out a little bit was this car went by and it left a trail of light, which is interesting, and his lights are flaring a bit. So this is a much better long exposure in terms of subject, composition, and really thinking about the photo. This is an awesome photo. These are more just typical run-of-the-mill traffic photos, where this one is more a bit of an art form, if you will. Maybe too much blackness going on here, but who cares? I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Now we've got the typical drawing long exposures. When you're photo drawing, when you're drawing with a sparkler or some sort of steel wool trick or something like that. Now, I have three of these. This one, got to admit, is pretty bad. And one of the reasons why is because, well, you can see here I'm lighting the sparkler. I probably should have lit that off. Well, I shouldn't even have lit it off of the camera's frame. I should have lit it in the center here somewhere so you wouldn't have a trailing line. But, maybe some people like that. Maybe I like that. I don't know. This one is probably one of the best, and this one's up there as well. Now, the reason why I don't like this one is, for one, that, and for two, this window here on my neighbor's house really sticks out, so I don't like that. This one, the window doesn't stick out as much. It's really good. Black and white worked well, and the reflection looks really vibrant here, whereas here it looks a little bit more lackluster. And then over here, this one's really good too because the window doesn't stick out. The sky is nice and blue. Did I do a longer exposure on this one? No, I didn't. What did I do? I shot at f11 aperture instead of f22. Now what that means is that more light came in, which means I got a lot brighter of a background. So that blue really popped out, which is very cool. And this was actually shot at a later time. So even though it was a later time of night, I still got a better blue here. So this is a really good photo. And all these photos are great long exposures for drawing with the sparkler or whatever. And the reason why is because the location. It's all about location, location, location. And the reason why is because, well, the pool. The pool, kind of adds this cool reflection. I thought it was very interesting. Also it's just a good background, that wall there reflecting off the light, and then the trees, and then the sky in the background. Obviously there are better locations, but you really got to think about this because sometimes you could take a photo that's really cool in a terrible location. That's a big thing. Now the last long exposure I have to show you is a long exposure with a little bit of creativity behind it. Boom. This is a long exposure that I did that may not pop out as a long, like if I showed you this photo really quick and I said, is this a long exposure? You go, not really, but it is. Well, you may ask why. Look at the hand. This is a 1 second exposure. Now it's kind of pushing the word long exposure a little bit, but it is a longer exposure. And the reason why I did one was so I could show movement in the hand, hitting the alarm clock, saying, oh, the alarm went off and it's school. You see all these pencils here and things like that. This was actually for a contest for Frono's Photo, or Jared Polin. He actually had a contest for Adorama Picks, and I entered this in for September for back to school. And I thought it was a very interesting, well thought. I'm thinking about the photo. I'm really thinking about the image I want to portray, and I used the tools I had to make that image happen. I'm showing movement. I'm showing actions. I'm making this photo speak a bit more. If I just had a hand resting on the alarm clock, it might have worked. If I had no hand, it probably wouldn't have worked at all. But with the hand moving, it really adds some sort of action to the photo. It makes it feel like the photo is happening like a video. It turns your photo into a motion picture without actually being a motion picture. So I think it's a cool little long exposure concept. So this is just a point to say you don't only have to do 30-second exposures of stars moving and things like that. You can do long exposures that are just a second or two to show movement, to show some sort of blurring. It's always good to do something like that just to add something to your photo. So that's pretty much it. That is my quick critique on long exposures that I have done in the past. If you guys have any tips to add, to my video, or my pictures rather, if you have any critiques of your own, go ahead and comment those below. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.